66%. That's how many new islands are reaching Discover in their first week. Do you know what that number was before? 1.3. That is a 50 times jump. And most creators still don't know what actually changed, what it means for them, and is it good or bad? I'm Joel, and at FN Analytica, we've been tracking thousands of islands across this entire overhaul using the publicly available data. And today I'm breaking it all down, slide by slide, so you actually understand what Epic built here and what they're trying to do, and if it actually is good or bad for you. So we'll be covering the 7 main things the community has been asking about since this change dropped. By the end, you'll have a clear data-backed verdict. So before we get into the numbers, here's the framing, because context matters here. We're comparing Discover 4 weeks before and 4 weeks after the big change from the old curated style rows to the new genre rows. The split point is April 23rd. That's when Epic implemented this change. The 7 things we're looking at today are more islands being shown on the Discover page? Are new islands actually getting tested, and can they break out? How much exposure does a test actually get? How long is an island visible for during this test? What does it take to break out from that new row to a genre row or beyond? Which genres give you the best shot to break out? And has any of this helped small creators? Heads up, one of these numbers is going to genuinely shock you. I'll get to it. So the first question, are more islands actually showing up in Discover after this change? Short answer, massively. Old Discover, the curated era, average 1,373 islands per day, flat as a board for 4 straight weeks. The new Discover, 2,371 per day. That is a 73% jump, and it happened exactly at April 23rd. The total unique islands went from about 7,000 to 14,000, roughly doubling. So yes, more islands are being shown on the new Discover page. But here's where it gets interesting. How many newly published islands are actually reaching Discover in their first week after being published? Old Discover, 1.3%. 1 in 77 maps got a look. The new Discover, 66%. 2 in 3 maps get tested. Now, most of that is the new row, the auto test intake that Epic implemented during this time. 56% of these islands land in this row. But even beyond it, islands earning a real competitive row, so the genre rows, popular, epic picks, went from 1.3% to nearly 10%. About 8 times better just on the organic side. And Epic literally documented this. The new row is the intake system. Publish something today and you're almost guaranteed to get in front of some players. But the question is, what happens after that? And that's where I need to show you the funnel. This is probably the most important data in this video. So here's the full picture. Published, reached Discover, earned a real row. In the old system, 2,895 maps published. 37 reached Discover, 37 earned a real competitive row. 1.3% the whole way down. Now, a good thing to note with this, which I'm sure all of you guys were aware of, there was a lot of bugs with the old style, new tabs, etc., where some maps were just in there for the entire time. So during this 4-week block that we did track, that obviously had a major impact on that. But now with the new system, 2,453 published, 1,610 reached Discover, and 244 earned a real row. So getting seen exploded. 1.3%. to 66%. 50 times. Breaking out onto a real row, about 1.3 to about 10%. That is an 8x increase. But, and this matters, over those 4 weeks, that 10% is actually falling. Week by week, as more islands start to flood in, it started around the 23%, and in the last week of the tracking, it actually went down to 3%. So the door opened, and everyone's trying to get in at that same time. So more maps got a test, but breaking out, that's still brutal. And it's getting harder. Righto, so you publish, you're in the new row, you're in the system. Now, how many players are actually seeing your island to give you a chance and a test to know if you deserve a promotion? In the old curated rows, median 486 unique players per island. New tab only, 27. 27. Even islands that made it to other rows in the new system, the median was 117. Better than 27, but still less than a quarter of what the old system delivered. So this is the core trade-off. Wider net, but thinner exposure. Old Discover featured a smaller amount of islands, but gave them a longer time slot to test. New Discover casts a massive net, but you've got a short amount of time to prove your worth to get promoted. And speaking of smaller, you need to know how short these tests are. This is the number that surprised both us and the people that we shared it with. 50% of new islands appear on that new row for just 1 day. 77% for 2 days or fewer. But 1 day doesn't mean what you think it means. Each appearance on the new row is roughly a 30-minute slot. Most maps get 1 or 2 of those. 63% of new maps get under an hour of total screen time across their entire run. The median is 40 minutes. 40 minutes. That is your test window. That is what being on Discover looks like for most new islands right now. Now, to be fair, Epic does state this in their documentation. They do say that testing can actually run up to 2 weeks, having multiple blocks within that, and at least giving you that extra chance of, different time zones, different regions, different timing, etc. And the benefit is saying that you can reach, if you have those good, engagement metrics from the get-go, you can get straight into the genre rows. So just remember that the new row is the intake, not the ceiling, but the data is showing that most islands don't make it past that intake. So what actually does separate those islands that do break out? Well, we grabbed that data. So we looked at islands that actually broke out of that new tab versus the ones that got stuck there. Over 8 weeks of data, over 10,000 islands, here's what separated them. Day 1 retention, winners held 9.4%. Stuck islands, 8%. So 1.2 times higher. Average minutes per player, 18 versus 14. 1.3 times the difference. Median players reached 210 versus 53. 4 times higher. And the peak concurrent users, 48 versus 18, 2.7 times. And every one of those metrics map back to what Epic is asking for. Average playtime, retention, bounce rate, qualified playthrough rate. And this weights players who actually go deep into your game or the ones that barely start. So a major note for all of you. Promotion is earned, not given. The algorithm is looking for genuine engagement, and the window to prove it is very short. Quality still wins. Make those first few minutes of your island really stand out more than anything. All right, so last piece, and then it's pure strategy for the creators. Not all genres are created equal in this new ecosystem, and the data is showing it very clearly. This chart plots every genre row by how crowded it is versus how sticky it is, meaning how long islands stay featured once they earn a spot. So in the top left is where you want to be. Less competition, longer feature time. So you can see Simulation and Tycoon at 252 islands, competing with maps staying featured for 23 days on average. Now in the bottom right is the Graveyard, Death Run. 534 islands competing, islands churning out in 16 days, music and sports, same story. Now this is important. Crowded doesn't mean bad. Those genres have more player demand, that's why they're crowded. But if you're launching something new and want the longest possible run once you're in, the niche genres give you significantly more runway. So who actually gets promoted? Has it helped smaller creators? So we tracked the peak CCU of the islands that earned a real row. The promoted pool skews smaller now. So that sub 100 CCU range for islands went from 58% to 68%. Now the 100 to 1K peak CCU range, that actually dropped by 10%. So I guess that's sort of the ones that people are taking from for those smaller creators. And the 1K to 10K, that jumped up slightly. And the 10K plus islands, they remained steady. Righto, 7 questions. Let's run the scoreboard. More islands shown? Yes. 73% more per day, double the unique islands. More islands getting tested? Yes. 1.3 to 66%, 50 times more. More islands promoted in absolute numbers? Yes. About 37 per week to 244. Longer testing periods? No. 40 minutes median. More exposure per island? No. 27 versus 486 players. Better for small creators? Somewhat. The promoted pool shifted 10 points towards smaller islands, but each slot delivers less. More genre diversity? Yes. 12 genre rows. It was 0. Now here's the honest truth. Epic didn't build a new system that gives every new island more exposure. What they did was build a system that gives way more islands more of a chance to be evaluated. Before April 23rd, you were basically invisible unless you were handpicked. Now you're in the system from day one. That is a meaningful change. But whether that 40-minute window actually turns into real opportunity for you, that comes down entirely to what's inside your island. Remember, the engagement signals that Epic is watching out for is documented. Playtime, retention, bounce rate, social play. It is not a secret. Make your island earn it. We will keep tracking this data as it evolves, and of course, we'll update you all on our findings. Now, last thing before you go. If you're a creator watching this and you're thinking, okay, I get the system now, but how do I actually apply this to my island? That's exactly what we do at FN Analytica. We help creators make data-driven decisions to give their island the best chance on being visible on Discover and having sustainable engagement and revenue. All right, it's not guesswork, it's not vibes, it's actual numbers applied to your current situation, your genre, your island, your metrics. You can head over to fnanalytica.com, everything's there. I'm Joel, I'll catch you on the next time.